All right, good morning, everyone. This is Andrew Kircher again. I think we all know kind of the drill at this point. But I had an idea in mind today. I have to go to my uh, ideas. I've kind of taken some of the low-hanging fruits. Now we gotta, look and see what we can find elsewhere. So I figured, this would be a good opportunity to do one of these walks and talk about some of the things we see on my way to work. Might have had a little bit of technical difficulty there, but we're back. All right, so I am walking down 6th Street. All right, we already kind of walked down Military like last week, but we're now on 6th Street. There's some other interesting homes. There's one up here in particular I want to point out and talk about that I think is pretty neat. But there's kind of a mix of homes on 6th Street. Some of them, of course, are the back end. Some of the buildings we looked at before, like there's that, the castle there, and Davison Place. It's a nice kind of shingle style home. We can kind of see these from the back, which is not usually where you look at a house, but on 6th Street we get that opportunity. And we've got some later homes here, probably from the 20s or 30s. We've got some kind of bungalow style homes, a little bit smaller single family homes, but some pretty neat ones all the same. There's a really cool bungalow that goes the other way with a great big long dormer on the roof there. Alright, we're across Oak Street here. Not a lot of traffic out today. It is a beautiful sunny day out, as you can probably see, so it is a good day to go for a little walk and take a look at some of the homes in your neighborhood. So we can see there's another nice little bungalow there. The one I want to talk about is up here on the corner. So I've really enjoyed doing these and enjoying reading everyone's comments. We've gotten a lot of requests for some different areas and neighborhoods in town. And like I said, I'm walking in to my office to pick up a couple of reference books that has some pretty handy information in there. So I have something to say about some of these neighborhoods. A lot of people say, oh, how do you know so much about Port Huron? Well, that's the secret, is I look things up. I don't know it all, but I know where to go to find information. That's kind of the real trick to it. Alright, so I like this house kind of up on a little hill here. It's got kind of a couple of additions. But right here, this is the house that I want to talk about. Because there's a couple references to this place in a couple of books on, I think it's Helen Endlich's book, like the story of Port Huron from the 80s, which you could take most of what she says as truthful, maybe with a grain of salt, do a little bit of your own research. She maybe wasn't the best about documenting all of her sources. But the cool thing about this house, and we are at the corner of Griswold and 6th Street here, and it's pretty deserted, so I can stand in the middle of the street, it's okay. The cool thing about this house is that it apparently dates to like the 1840s. It was actually moved to where you see now, and that would make this definitely one of the oldest, if not the oldest home in Port Huron. And it is a Gothic revival home. You can see it's very simple. So we think about old homes, we think about like these Queen Anne homes here that have these very elaborate and ornate forms. They're much bigger than probably homes we are used to today. But if you go back even further than that, back through the 1870s, the 1860s, smaller homes, we get to these smaller homes. Now, one of the defining characteristics, I'm going to step across the street here, so we can see there's that cool Standard Oil company with that Spanish tile. There's a pooch outside who's saying hello. But one of the cool things about these Gothic revival homes, one of the kind of defining features are these peaked windows, these high arches. This was a very popular movement like the 1830s, the 1840s. It's kind of the opposite of Greek revival. It comes out of an era of people interested in a kind of a romantic movement. We think about people like Edgar Allan Poe writing some of his stories and that Gothic and medieval tradition. And you frequently saw these homes were probably more popular in rural areas than they were in big cities. And at the time of the 1840s, Port Huron was certainly very rural. There really was not much here at all at that time. But you can see, again, those kind of peaked forms. Now, if I were taking an educated guess, I'm guessing that the window on the right there is original and the one on the left has probably been replaced at some point. And obviously there's some new siding, which is no surprise. Again, this building is like dates before the Civil War. So you're going to see modifications and changes. You can see there is a little bit of ornamentation right above my very blurry finger there, above that side door. There's a little piece of something called barrage board. Sometimes you hear that referred to as like gingerbread. Sometimes you'll see that up in those arched gables there, and we think of that as that kind of quintessential Victorian look. So anyway, it's very unassuming. You wouldn't notice this. I didn't think about it until the other day. Again, I was doing some more reading, going back through a couple of the books I had, looking for some interesting homes to comment on, and that I think is certainly one of them. We've got another Queen Anne house here on the right. This one has a nice, this one would be a turret. It doesn't go all the way down to the ground floor. One of the other things that I think is really neat about this Queen Anne, I think about it whenever I walk to work, is this really interesting little porch on the second floor. Now, this porch is obviously tiny, and I'd often wondered about these. Now, I came across a reference a few years ago that helped to explain why, I'm going to move so you can see here, why that porch would be so small. Sometimes porches are not uncommon here. Again, you see there's another Queen Anne with a larger porch. You could put a couple chairs out there. This porch, there's no room. What is this porch for? Well, when we think, I'm going to step across the street, we can see a little bit a wider picture here. When we think about these homes, one of the amenities we think about today is wall-to-wall carpet, and how much we love wall-to-wall carpet, big plush stuff. In the 60s and 70s, you've got this shag carpet. Well, the Victorians, the people living in the 1880s and 90s, they liked carpet as well. But they didn't typically have wall-to-wall carpet, at least in the way we know, where it's permanently stuck down. They had these giant area rugs that would sometimes take up a whole room. But there's a key piece of technology that doesn't show up until kind of the end of the 19th century that makes carpet really reasonable. And it's what you have to do to clean the carpet. It's the vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaners, when they first start showing up, are these giant machines like the size of this truck pulled by a team of horses, and they go inside. So most people couldn't afford that. There probably wasn't one in Port Huron. But what you do see are people beating out their rugs. You know, you hang out that rug outside, you beat it out, you get all the dust outside of that. That is something that's kind of one of those, again, quintessential old tasks. If you go to any antique store, you're going to see a bunch of old rug beaters. But this porch is an innovation to make that easier, because you've got all these nice carpets on the second floor where your bedrooms are. So when you roll out of bed in the morning, you won't want to put your feet on a cold ground. You want a nice warm carpet. You're going to have carpets upstairs. And rather than have to roll them up, drag them all the way down the stairs and outside, you get a little porch like this so you can step outside with that carpet and beat it out right there. How convenient is that? That's at least one of the reasons for these kind of really small porches on some of these Queen Anne homes. There's 4 really beautiful Queen Anne homes here right in a row. This one has some of that barrage board I was talking about earlier up in the peak of that gable. Another nice one with a little turret here up above and some markings on top. There's another one on the corner here. So these are, again, all great examples of that Queen Anne style of architecture. Now there is another kind of neat home back this way, one that was very, very common. Sometimes you see homes like this referred to as like an American Foursquare. Sometimes they're called a corn belt cube. There's another one right there. It's because they're a big cube. They're very practical. You see these all over. These were really popular, sometimes at the same time as these Queen Anne homes, but you can imagine which one of these homes is more practical and cheap to make. It's going to be the one that's just a square. So, you know, they're very common for people to live in. They're very popular out for people like farmers, people who are, very practical. So you see them kind of all over the Midwest. There are a lot of regional styles in architecture. The regional style Michigan is probably the most known for, is the upright and wing. Which is a type of, you see them a lot of farmhouse. Basically, if you look at the house from the top, it'd look like an L. There's an upright portion, 2 stories tall, and then sometimes only 1 story sticking off to the side. I'm sure there's one in town. I got to think of where I might find a good example to show you guys. We've got another couple homes here that have some elements of that Gothic revival, that high pointed arch. There's one right there as well. Again, not all of these homes are going to look like they're been designed by Edgar Allan Poe. Sometimes you just see little elements of these styles incorporated in. It's only when we look back, after 100 years, that some of the highest version of the styles stand out. Most homes, didn't have all of that. There's another neat one here. This one is kind of a Dutch colonial with this kind of gambrel gable there, so it's got that broken angle, and it's a cross gable, so it look like a little plus or an X from up above. Got another couple homes right here on this nice little hill that gives them a really nice elevated view. They can look down town and see the water. It is a beautiful day to see that today. I've only got another couple of blocks to go, but there is 1 or 2 more things I might want to point out on the way there. Some of these cool homes. Again, we're on 6th Street today. You can do this for just about any street in town. Port Huron has a great mix of architectural styles, which I think is really nice to have. There's another kind of Greek revival influence on the corner there, this red guy, and another kind of, like I said, one of those corn-belt cubes, that American Foursquare, but this one's got quite a bit more decoration on the front, just because it's simple in its form. So it's got just that kind of cube shape. It doesn't have any weird towers. It's not asymmetrical. You can still decorate these with quite a bit of ornamentation. Yeah, it is windy. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I know we're walking through is a bit of a breeze. Oh, I already walked past. I was pointing the camera the other way. The one other place I wanted to point out. There's another one back here that's kind of a cool, it's got kind of a Greek revival front to this building. It's got, with this broken cornice here that suggests a pediment. But the cool thing I liked was the treatment of this door. It's a very federal style, or that Adams style. We talked about this a little bit when we were in the neighborhood the other day, when we were over in Sherman Woods. So, it's very flat. There's not a lot that sticks out on these. And this would have been really popular, like the early Republic, like the 1810s, 1820s. Is when you see a lot of homes that look like this on the East Coast. And of course, some of those come back later. And keep in mind, especially in like the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, Port Huron and Michigan in general is very much on kind of the frontier. This is, not where the cutting edge is happening. So some of the architectural movements that start on the East Coast, they make their way west slowly over the course of years. So some of the coolest architectural styles that I like from the 19th century, that I don't know if there are any really good examples in Port Huron, is Egyptian revival. There's a period in the 1830s, actually right around the time you've all heard of the Rosetta Stone, how they figure out how to translate hieroglyphics. People get really excited about Egypt. And so you can take a look at some of the buildings, especially we see quite a few in New York. In fact, I think their jail that's built there in the 1830s, a place called The Tombs. It's a jail and courtroom complex. They called it The Tombs because once you went in, you never came back out. But it was very Egyptian revival, which is pretty cool. So you see Things like battered columns like you would see in ancient Egypt. You see things with like palm leaves on the top. Sometimes cemeteries were designed like that. The 1830s and 40s are kind of the start of cemeteries as we know them today, where they're, you know, kind of a great big park. So it's really cool to see one of those in an Egyptian theme. Like I said, I don't think there are any in Port Huron. Could be wrong. If somebody knows one, I'd love to know about it. But that's one of my favorite, very niche, short-lived architectural movements. There are some other ones as well, like the Octagon House was a craze very briefly in the 1850s. There's a guy named Orson Squire Fowler who basically says an octagon is the perfect shape for a house. But he's also one of the guys credited with inventing phrenology. And phrenology is when they feel the bumps on your head to see like if you're an arsonist or you've got the makings of a madman. So I don't hold a lot of faith in phrenology or the Octagon House. But there are Octagon houses in Michigan. I'm not sure where the closest one is. Maybe somebody knows and they'll throw it up in the comments. We're walking by Grace Church here, Grace Episcopal. This has, I think for my money, possibly the most beautiful sanctuary of the churches I've been in town. I don't know, what's everybody else's opinion? Maybe you know one that you think is gorgeous. Grace certainly is. Grace Episcopal. Now this building is not the original building. Their original church was actually located where Sperry's is today. And they moved here as the city was kind of expanding in, I want to say, the 1850s, 60s. Some beautiful bells that you can hear. So I want to point out one more element that you hear a lot in this kind of Gothic revival style of architecture, and it's these trefoils. They kind of, it's like a three-leaf clover. You can see them right underneath these louvers here in the bell tower, the clarion there. They're kind of like three little bumps. They're very medieval. Sometimes there's like quadrifoils, which you can imagine that means four. There's another trefoil in the corner of this window here. Oh, so Tim says there's an Octagon House on Wildcat. So I will have to go check that out then, for sure. That's one of those niche styles that I really like. So we're now getting to the Carnegie Center. This is where my office is. The Carnegie Center here is, of course, today home of the Port Huron Museum. Historically, this was built actually as a library in 1904, and it's a Carnegie Library. So if anybody knows anything about Andrew Carnegie, they know that he has a lot to do with steel, and he really liked libraries. He was a great philanthropist. So he paid $40,000 for this building in 1904. So if you want to get really technical, this is a Beaux-Arts style building. Kind of, again, you can see that classical influence, but it isn't a full-on classical revival. It doesn't have like columns out front, but it is, you know, one of those big important works. So you see lots of kind of monumental in scope and scale. I see Garth points out there's some, I guess, not really controversy. Most people today will just say Carnegie. He probably would have said Carnegie, because he is from Scotland. He emigrated to the United States and lived in Pennsylvania. So the building itself, the deal was that Carnegie would give $40,000 to the city. The city had to provide a plot of land for the building, and they had to give about 1/10 of that amount every year to pay for library upkeep. Since the library budget was already about $3,500, there were a public library kind of in the local high school, but they wanted its own building. I mean, who would want to go to the local high school as the public library? No dissing on high school students, but I think I'm glad we have our own separate library building. So the city only had to up that by a couple $100. It was a no-brainer. The library gets built, and one of the neat things is that Melville Dewey, the guy from the Dewey Decimal System, is actually one of the people who helps to dedicate the library. All right, so we've made it here. Hopefully I haven't lost too much of my narration from the wind, but we're out of it today. So I'm going to be heading in, like I said, to my office to grab a couple books so we can do some more research and we can keep doing these. So if you've got some more ideas, places you want to see, let me know. And throw it up in the comments. I'm back here a little bit out of the wind. So again, this is Andrew Kircher from Port Huron Museums, the Community Engagement Manager here. Hopefully you've enjoyed our walk. Hopefully you've been able to hear it. Sorry about the wind again. But if there's something you want to know or something maybe you missed in the narration, ask about it. I try and keep an eye on the comments for the next couple days as they come in, answer any questions we get. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, like it, share it with your friends, and you can always support the museum a number of different ways. Follow us on Facebook, and you can become a member today. That's what I've really been encouraging people to do. Your membership would be good for a full year from when it is that we are able to reopen. It's a great way to support the museum and get something back while you're doing it. It's a win-win. So until next time, I'm going to go grab some books, and I got some reading to do. All right, take care.